Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. Please make sure that you subscribe, like and also leave a comment. We are going to discuss about amphibians, and before that we have the objective that you should be able to answer at the end of the lesson. First, you should be able to give the anatomical and physiological transformations that enable the aquatic vertebrates to adapt the life on land, and the other objective is that you should be able to give the differences between different groups of amphibians. So let's start, guys. I'm going to start with the characteristics of amphibians, and before that we are going to focus on important facts that cross-septogenous are the most likely to give rise to terrestrial vertebrates. An example of cross-septogenous is fishes. So, however, life on land presented the following challenges. Remember, while relating the challenges on land, you should be able to focus on fishes. So, let's say like fishes living on land. So, they face the following difficulties. So, locomotion without the support of water was difficult. Remember, fishes are adapted to water and they cannot move without water. So locomotion without the support of water was difficult. Desiccation is the process is drying up. So starting with the skins, going to the gills, everything in the body dried up. The other difficulty was respiration. Remember, water must bathe the gills so that oxygen can diffuse into the blood vessels of the animal, and carbon dioxide to diffuse out of the body. So this respiration was difficult. The other problem was that signal receptors would not be effective on land. Remember, fishes use a lateral line to detect any signal or vibration on water. So this lateral line could not be effective on land. The other problem was that air is less dense than water, so it gives less resistance to movement. Hence, skeleton and muscles, which are stronger, were needed to support the animal. The other problem was desiccation of delicate eggs and sperms if deposited in water. Remember, eggs of frogs, eggs of fishes require to stay on water until they hatch and reach to maturity. So these eggs could not survive on land since they could dry up. So we are going to look at the characteristics of amphibians, and we know that they can both live on water and in water and land. Like for example, frogs can survive in water and also can survive in on land. So they are both exothermal or ectothermal. Sorry, they are ectothermal animals, meaning that they cannot regulate their body temperature, and their body temperature fluctuates depending on the surrounding. So this is not exothermal, they are ectothermal animals. So body is divided into head and trunk. So the tail may be present or they may be absent. For example, the tail is absent in frogs, and it is present in salamanders and salamanders. So amphibians have no paired fins like fishes. We know fishes have paired fins. So unpaired fins may be present. So skin is smooth and rough, but it lacks scales like in fishes and reptiles and birds also. So breeding occurs in water, and that is a must because the eggs are so delicate and the sperms are so delicate. So hearts has 3 chambers. Guys, you can remember in our last lesson we said that the hearts of amphibians has 3 chambers. which is two atria and one ventricle. The hearts are mesonephric, that is, the excretory materials include ammonia and urea. Remember, there are 3 developmental stages of hearts, which is this is not a heart, it is the kidneys. The kidneys are mesonephric. They are phonephric, they are mesonephric and metanephric. So mesonephric are not so advanced like in mammals, which is metanephric. So there is a mistake in the heart. So it's not the heart, it's the kidney. So the kidneys are mesonephric, and they can only excrete ammonia and urea. So they possesses 10 pairs of cranial nerves. The sexes are separate, and fertilization always occurs externally. So sexes are meaning one is a female and the other is a male. So sexes are different and separate, and fertilization is always external. From there, we are going to look at the anatomy of amphibians, and we are going to take a frog as an example. So we are going to start with the digestive system, and the digestive system is consisted of the esophagus, which is the passage of food from the mouth. From the esophagus, we go to the stomach. So the stomach stores food and mixes it with enzymes to begin digestion. So beside stomach, we have a liver, which secretes bile juice and processes digested food molecules. On the other side, we have gallbladder, which stores bile juice. We also have small intestines. Before that, we have the pancreas, and the pancreas secretes bile juice, and this bile juice helps in digestion of food in the small intestines. So from the stomach, we go to the small intestines, and small intestines is where the digestion and absorption of food occurs. So small intestines is divided, and duodenum is the front of the small intestines. So food, before reaching the small intestines, passes through the duodenum and to go to the small intestines. From there, we are going to the large intestines, and the large intestines basically stores undigested food materials, and also secretes bile juices and processes digested food molecules. So from there, we are going to the cloaca, which is the opening or the anus in mammals. So but this cloaca is found in fish, birds, and also amphibians. And amphibians, for example, a frog. So cloaca is the exit cavity for excretory, urinary, and reproductive systems. And cloaca is found in male and female frogs, and for reproductive purposes, cloaca allows passage of sperms and eggs. From there, we are going to the urogenital system. The urogenital system consists of is the cloaca, basically, because it is the passage of urine, excretory, urinary, and reproductive system. So cloaca is basically the urogenital system. Urogenital system means that it is where the urinary products pass, and also it is used as a reproductive system. So cloaca is basically the urogenital system. From there, we are going to look at the circulatory system of amphibians, and we said that amphibians contains of 3 chambers, and which are two atria and one ventricle, and this is you can see the flow of blood. Both the oxygenated blood is the blood in blue, and deoxygenated blood is blood in red or maroon. From there, we are going to look at the adaptations of amphibians to terrestrial life. And a point to note is that amphibians were first vertebrates to overcome some of the difficulties to become the first terrestrial vertebrates. So they did so by retaining the lungs and the paired appendages of crossopterygians and ancestors, and so they evolved many additional features that adapted them to life on land. They also retained many fish-like characteristics, and so they are not completely independent of water, so they cannot just live completely on land. So they are just intermediate between aquatic and fully terrestrial vertebrates. Let's start with the skin. So the skin is adapted for respiration. So the skin for respiration lacks scales, and the skin is also usually thin. It is covered with mucus that keeps it moist. The epidermis is few layers thick, so gaseous exchange is possible. It is highly vascularized or with many blood vessels, and this aids in respiration. So the combination of thin skin and high vascularization allows amphibians to lose considerable amount of water through the skin, and this is the factor that limits amphibians to habitats with high humidity. Remember, habitats with high humidity cannot allow loss of excess water to the atmosphere. So amphibians cannot basically live on those habitats because they need to lose a lot of water through the skin. So there are numerous glands that secrete a frothy substance like that contains poison if the animal is stressed. Let's say like, for example, a frog. If you touch a frog and you stress it, it will secrete a poisonous frothy substance that will maybe irritate your skin. So any toxic amphibians have warning coloration, like for example chameleon and those frogs. And also the skin has pigment cells which are called chromatophores that produce color for camouflaging, and this camouflaging is mostly found in chameleons and frogs, also dark melanin or the black melanophores. So another adaptation is that from the skin we go to the adaptations of skeleton and muscles. So amphibians have developed a stronger skeleton and associated musculature to support the weight of the body on land and raise the head during feeding. Remember, we said that air is less dense than water, so movement was difficult in crossopterygians. So they had to develop a stronger skeleton and the associated musculature to support the weight of the body on land. So the vertebral centra are thoroughly ossified or connected, and successive vertebrates interlock, secured by the means of overlapping process of vertical arches. So the lobe-shaped paired fins of Crossopterygians have been transformed into limbs supported by strong girdles or the hip or the pelvic and the shoulder or the pectoral girdle. Also, muscles of the trunk are powerful, and lateral undulations of the trunk and the tail help to advance and retract feet. So you can see basically the skeleton muscles were advanced and became more stronger to support the life of the animals on land. The other thing, the other adaptation or the other advancement was sense organs and nerve system. Remember, in the first, we said in the first part, lateral line was of no use on land because they were dependent on water. So they had to develop advanced sensory organs and nerve system. So during evolution, many changes occurred in sensory organs. In larval and aquatic adults, there are lateral line system with mechanical and electoral reptors that were absent in the terrestrial adults. So the eye is clear and protected by tear glands and eyelids respectively. Also, the lens is flattened and refraction is by the cornea. Also, the inner ear can detect position and acceleration of the head and the outer vibrations. Remember, in water, they were able to detect vibrations only by the lateral lines, but here the evolutions brought the changes of the inner ear, which can detect the position and acceleration of the head and the outer vibration. So when in water, they hear in the same way that fish do by detecting vibrations that pass through the body tissue to the inner ear. So we can look at the characteristics of amphibians, as we said earlier. So respiration is by the means of lungs, gills, skin, and buccal cavity, and or the combination of all. So it can be gills, lungs, skin, or the buccal cavity. And we said that the skin is contained of blood vessels that aid in aeration of blood. So from there we are going to the circulation, and we've seen already the circulation of blood in amphibians, and we say that they have two. The heart of larva is like that of fish with one atrium and one ventricle. It receives only deoxygenated blood that is pumped directly to the gills. So in adults, they have two atria and one ventricle, as we said earlier. So the left atrium receives blood and oxygenated blood from the skins and the lungs, and the right receives deoxygenated blood from the general circulation. So despite the single ventricle, there is some separation of straight blood that is sent to respiratory surface that is almost all deoxygenated. So there is excretion and water balance. So most species do not drink water. Like let's say, like for example, frogs. So they do not drink water. So it passes through the skin and enters or leave the body. So larvae of most species resemble freshwater fishes in that they excrete a large part of nitrogenous waste as ammonia. Terrestrial species eliminate nitrogen as urea, while several tree species conserve water by eliminating up to 8% of their nitrogen waste as uric acid. And this uric acid mostly is also found in birds. So we look at reproduction and development. So most species have to return to water to breed, as we said earlier, is one of the characteristics. Breeding is in water only. So they mate in water where the eggs are deposited and hatch, and the larvae live and grow. They metamorphose to adults. So each species has its own characteristic type of breeding places, like for example a pond, a stream, a pool, or so on. So few species breed on land because breeding of in water is mostly common. So the gelatinous coating protect the egg against shock, desiccation, and predators. So the form of eggs, masses, and jelly coats are distinctive for each species. Like for example, toads' eggs have long string, those of frogs in masses, and for the salamanders in clams. So in few species like salamanders, the eggs are deposited individually.